So you say the meaning of life. There's not the secret of life is there's no secret. There is no meaning, right?
Probably. I can't say that definitively. I'm not an immortal being. I'm not infinite. But I would,
Yeah,
suppose there's this idea that the universe is a hologram, a computer program. So
yeah,
imagine that it is, and there's some kid who concocted this universe as a science project in whatever
mm,
society it's in. Well, does that
yeah,
fundamentally change that I have to pay taxes? Does that fundamentally change that I'm going to die? I mean, at one point, the whole uh, elephants standing on turtles, standing on turtles. At
yeah,
somewhere since there is something, and there's not nothing. And
mm,
I don't think any human being that I know can even conceive of what nothing could possibly be. Because
yeah,
nothing isn't blackness, nothing isn't silence. That's blackness and
yeah,
silence. What is nothing?
yeah,
Since there is something, that means fundamentally there has to be a base reality. It may be so far removed from us that it's infinity minus one removed from us, but there is a
mm,
base reality somewhere out there. So even if I'm a computer program of a computer program of a computer program
mm,
all the way down, or I'm the
mm,
dream of a god, I'm the dream of Vishnu, who's the dream of Bumbaba, who's the dream of Ukma, whatever gods all the way down,
yeah, yeah,
there's something fundamental. There is a base reality. So since there is, let's talk about it. Let's experience it.
mm,
Whether there's an infinite number of universes, whether there's just
mm,
this one, I don't know. But
mm,
I can't really think that there could be a meaning. I don't believe there's a single God. If I were religious, I would think that polytheism is a little bit saner. I don't think that there are gods or ghosts or
mm,
or
yeah,
wicked creatures from the
yeah.
imagination wandering around. But you know, anyway.
Mm. Yeah, I mean, I see, and this is one of my personal beliefs that I spout every time, if I'm in discussion with anyone. And I believe that the answer to our reason to exist, our purpose, will come from outer space. It has to, right? See, people try religion, people try all kinds of things, but maybe from outer space. You say nothing will change. You say that I still have to pay my taxes. I'll still have to do this and that. But imagine if today they say that we found microbial, life forms in our solar system. That would change everything, won't it? I mean, that would
to,
change
to
all.
to some people, but the people who are obsessed with Kim Kardashian, who gives a shit? They don't care. And this is the thing I tell my wife. My wife is more of a typical artist than me. She has all of these emotional ups and downs. She wants to
Mm,
be known. She wants to be read. She wants people to, and so do I. But I tell her, this is, this is temporal. 50, 100 years from now, everyone we know is going to be dead, and ultimately, our work will be out there. I might not ever get rich off of it, but it will be out there. There are tens of thousands of people at minimum that have read my work. I deal
mm,
with people like you have who pop up. It
yeah,
would be nice to be able to not have to work and deal with the stuff. I work, I told you, a blue collar job. Just yesterday, I had
yeah,
to call in my company number because there's a coworker that's been harassing me and other people at work. So why do I have to
mm,
deal with this? Is there any great fundamental thing? No,
yeah,
life just is. Uh, I don't feel particularly put upon. Yeah, there's things I have to deal with. I've had in the past medical issues. Why did this happen to me? Why did this girl not like me? Why did a few years ago, you might have read, I wrote about losing this job because the company I was working for was breaking the law. And I followed the company process and they fired me because they were breaking the law. And in the state I live in the US, it's legal to fire
mm,
someone for doing the right thing. Why is
mm,
that? I can't answer that. People do what they do. I can only account for me
mm, mm.
and how
That's
I
a,
deal with
I mean,
life.
yeah, yeah. But again, like then the whole, then why not be a hedonist, and then why not be, like those things come into play, right? I
Well,
mean,
because just for me on a functionary level, if I was a hedonist, I would be wasting a lot
mm,
of time. I might only live to be 80 or 90. I could die next Tuesday. I want to get as much of things out here because I want people to know about the
mm,
world that I knew. 5,000
mm,
years from now, 10,000 years from now, if there's
yeah,
an alien species out there and they've got a galactic encyclopedia and someone
mm,
is thumbing through or tentacling through and they go, oh, Earth, it's in this
mm,
quadrant, and oh, ancient Earth artists. literature.
yeah,
Oh,
yeah.
oh, this guy. And that creature or mind or being reads this and says, wow, 10,000 years
Mm,
ago, this person had this thought. I had this thought when I was in the other galaxy. How could this
yeah,
person have known this? That's like
yeah.
Homer. That's like Rabindranath Tagore, who's the only writer that I really know from India, reaching out a century later and
Yeah.
understanding something. This is how we communicate. This is what I say about art translating the cosmos. If I can
Mm,
have an effect that
mm,
makes you understand something a bit more, what
mm,
that's greater to me than living for a billion years, because if I'm a billion years, I'm going to be one decrepit old son of a bitch. I'd sooner be
yeah,
immortal by being read. I'm not like Woody Allen who wants to be immortal by living forever.
yeah,
If I want to be immortal, read me,
yeah,
because Dan Schneider, the person that you're talking to, I'm just a
mm,
collection of atoms. But the
yeah,
works, the people that I write about, the things that can
mm,
touch you either emotionally, intellectually, that's what matters. And touching you intellectually, by the way, is much more important than touching you emotionally. Because if I touch
mm,
you intellectually, what will happen is you will go and think about it again. And sooner or
mm,
later, that will seep down into your emotion. If I merely
mm,
touch you emotionally, there's no
mm,
guarantee it's going to seep upward. This is why we have
mm,
things called tearjerker films. No one
mm.
really looks at a tearjerker film and goes, boy, there was really some great idea there. No, they're just going for the
Yeah,
cheap emotion.
I know.
But if you
Yeah.
if you watch 2001, just to give you an example, the very first
Mm,
time when I was about 10 or 11 and saw this movie on late night television, I saw
yeah,
when Hal the computer was being unplugged in that red room.
yeah,
I cried
yeah,
for Hal. I cried for Hal.
yeah,
I
yeah,
felt emotion
yeah,
for Hal, who was a killer.
yeah, yeah, absolutely. Just like you cheer for the Nazis in It's Beautiful Life, right? Uh, Everyone's gonna call you crazy, but it makes sense if you think
Yeah,
about it,
but
right?
when you have an idiot like Roberto Benigni, you
Yeah,
want him to die.
yeah. But yeah, I mean, see, and there's so many things like that's why I quoted your meaning of life. It's a quote I saw on the website, Dan Schneider, and you wrote that, and it's pretty much nihilist. In like there's no purpose or there's no meaning or there's nothing, right?
If
So that's what kind of depresses me in a way. I mean, I admire your
but
resignation.
you make meaning. You Rishi, you are that is not that is empowering. You have the power to make your life meaningful or not. I have said I'm going to write more stuff. I'm going to write greatly, and I'm going to affect people long after I'm gone. That's more
Mm,
empowering than me being a billionaire like Donald Trump and deciding I'm going to fuck up the world or I'm just going to make money. Who gives a shit about Bill Gates? Who gives a shit about Jeff Bezos from Amazon? All of these
yeah,
people who are these nihilists who don't give a shit about people. You know,
yeah.
you can only have so much money, but
I know.
but
Yeah,
and I've said this, and I want you to think about it. I'm going to give you three names, and you tell me if you've ever heard of them: Shakespeare, Picasso, and Beethoven. You've heard of these guys, right?
yeah, yeah.
Okay, now let me ask you this: who was the richest man in England who wasn't a royal when Shakespeare was alive? Who was the
Mm,
mayor of Picasso's town when he was alive? And who
yeah,
was the greatest salesman or merchant in the province that Beethoven was in? These people are much more important than these guys when they were alive.
mm,
But who gives a fuck
yeah,
about them now? They did nothing to advance the cause of humanity. Beethoven,
mm,
Picasso, and Shakespeare, whether you like them or not,
yeah.
they did.
Absolutely. Yeah, yeah. Yeah, it's a great personal perspective, And I thought, I mean, I don't know. I would think that, hey, at least I would want to, like your wife, experience it myself. If I'm dead, then you get my point, right? I
Yeah.
mean, I'm dead.
Yeah,
So
I said to my wife, she'll go, I I want to know what someone in 2168 thinks. I said, in 2168 I'll be dead. It's not going to
mm,
matter, but it will matter to
yeah,
that person, hopefully. Just like, and I said, we talk about people like Emily Dickinson or Gerard Manley Hopkins, poets who are not famous in their day. You can talk about Vincent van Gogh. I recently,
right.
a year or so ago, I watched this cartoon film made about Van Gogh that was okay,
Mm,
had some positives, but it was mostly negative. Um,
mm,
Van Gogh sold one painting in his lifetime. Now,
yeah,
I
yeah,
think he's a bit overrated compared to some other painters, but there's no doubt that he did some great work. Would Van
yeah,
Gogh, would the world be better off if Van Gogh had been famous, if Van Gogh died knowing that he was famous, would that really
Mm,
have made a difference to anyone other than him? What Van Gogh is, when people talk about Shakespeare, they're not talking about the dead man under Stratford on Avon. When people talk
yeah.
about Van Gogh, they're not talking about the Dutchman that killed himself. They are talking
Mm,
about the art. Dan Schneider, when people read me in 200 years, they're not going to be talking about the guy with who's nearsighted and worked his ass off and
mm,
whatnot. No, nothing I've done in any job that I've done,
mm,
no matter how hard I work, no matter how much I pride myself in doing a good job in whatever it is,
mm.
whether it's cleaning toilets or anything, none of that
Mm.
matters more than a few days at the most.
Oh
But
yeah.
the poems that I've written, that I've gotten feedback and people saying, Dan, I read this poem of yours on this website, 12 years ago, and I followed you ever since. That's more
Mm,
important. Even if the person
yeah.
themselves isn't a great poet, it's meant something
Yeah.
to someone and it's enlightened them. And maybe they
Yeah.
will tell their grandkids about this Dan Schneider's poetry. And that grandkid may be the person who starts a printing press, or a
Yeah.
publishing press, and publishes all my
Yeah.
stuff, whatever.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I'm sure you find it much better that someone from Singapore or India is talking to you, knowing your work, than someone paying you $2,000, for example, right?
Yeah,
I
I mean,
mean,
now if it was $2 billion, that would I'd take that, because
yeah.
then I could
Yeah.
fundamentally change the publishing industry. But
Yeah.
that when you mentioned Singapore, you know this kid then who in Singapore who is a fan of my work
Yeah.
and has written some things. Yeah.
Yeah.
So
I mean, we are in touch, actually.
oh, okay, okay.
Yeah, through you. So
Oh, okay.
he's more into poetry, I'm more into films, but the
Huh.
connecting dot is
Okay.
you.
Well,
So
see there, I didn't even know that. So that's good, and that
yeah.
and that's to be a bridge between people individually is nice, but
Yeah.
hopefully it's more than just, oh, you guys want to hang out on a chat together. Hopefully you'll exchange ideas with him,
Yeah.
and maybe
Yeah.
that makes both of your art better, independent of me.
Yeah. I mean, I can see he has so much talent, right? I mean, he analyzes your plays, your poetry. I'm not in poetry, so I don't know. I just don't go there, but
Yeah.
I can see the interest.